There is a man in the UK who is currently debating buying a rubbish dump because it has millions of pounds worth of Bitcoin in it. Some of you will already be aware of the story of James Howells. If you are not, I cannot wait to share this tale with you because it really is a fantastic, fascinating sort of David and Goliath story, I suppose, if maybe Goliath had a point. This is James Howells of Newport, who, from what I can tell, was an extremely early Bitcoin adopter, and particularly an extremely early Bitcoin miner. I was reading a analysis of some of this story a little while ago, and they suggested that he was like one of the first 5 people to mine Bitcoin. And unfortunately for him, what happened was he lost his Bitcoin. And I mean, to give you a taster of what's to come, this story involves some kind of slapstick misunderstandings fitting of a kind of 1970s sitcom. It involves a David and Goliath story of man against local council, of a kind of enemy of the people scenario. It ends with security guards being stationed around a rubbish dump to stop people going in to try and claim millions of pounds worth of Bitcoin. It even involves a trial of the century in which a man tries to take on his local council in the High Court of the United Kingdom of Great Britain and Northern Ireland. So the story begins in 2013, where James Howell put a hard drive containing the Bitcoin wallet on which he kept the key. Is that the terminology? Through which he could access his Bitcoin, into a black bag, and then left it in his house. Okay, his partner, who was then going to take the bins out, accidentally took that black bag and put it in the bin, at which point it got taken to the rubbish dump. Which I do kind of enjoy as the starting point to this story, because it just has real slapstick energy to it. If you like, bin bags are a thing with quite a particular usage. Many of us often do use bin bags for other things. You know, when people are filming, bin bags often get used to put over equipment to stop them getting wet. If you're moving house, you might put things in a bin bag because it is a useful way of transporting pillows or something. However, if it is going to be something which isn't just rubbish that you are putting in there, probably just make sure everyone knows, probably just really make sure. In one story, he says that he once mined like hundreds. Here we go. He recalled mining 400 to 800 Bitcoin intermittently overnight. Like he was that early in being a Bitcoin miner that like he was mining actual whole numbers of Bitcoin. So the bin bag ends up in this rubbish dump, and you know, he is terrified that he's throwing away all these Bitcoins, which would be worth a huge amount, right? What does this guy say? If he could recover them, they would be worth £600 million, which is quite a bit, right? And so he pops down to the rubbish dump to ask whether he could search for them, ask whether he could recover them in some way. And unsurprisingly, Newport City Council, which, has all of these things to do, it has to oversee schools, it has to make sure it's raising council tax, it has to make sure some roads within its jurisdiction are being looked after, it has to operate other bin collections. They're like, no, sorry, you can't. Like, that's an incredibly reasonable health and safety thing that no one can be just wandering around across the rubbish dump to try and find a single hard drive. He did try to he did sort of put together a team of experts and took on investors as well. So at some point over the past few years, he basically took a bunch of money from a hedge fund who were like, do you know what? Why not invest in this slightly odd but potentially lucrative idea of giving him a bunch of money to try and retrieve this hard drive and give him some resource to be able to do so. Put together and he's put together like a bit of a team of experts. He's been coming up with different ways that they could try and search the dump for it. He's talked about like AI, about like Boston Dynamics building a robot to try and sort of sift through stuff. And Newport City Council, have repeatedly just been like, look, man, like I don't know what to tell you. You threw the thing away. Rubbish dumps are large. It is a needle in a haystack situation. It's a hard drive in a rubbish dump situation, right? So he went back and forth with the council for a long time, sort of him asking to go and search for these Bitcoin, them saying, like, no, just the chances are too low. You getting in the way of, something going wrong in a rubbish dump presumably would cost the council quite a lot of money, even just interruption. At one point later, he offered to split the money with the council. So this story had popped up in my awareness like quite some time ago. But then it was really interesting that it kept coming up when I made a video about why British cities keep going bankrupt, in which we went round to a bunch of different cities and talked about struggles with local government finances here in the UK. And this story kept coming up because whilst the topic of local councils, city councils in the UK not having a huge amount of money was like a big topic, he was trying to sort of use that as a further reason why he should be allowed to search the rubbish dump. It was a good way of saying, at a time when councils don't have very much money, really they should be letting me sift through the rubbish dump to try and find this hard drive with the Bitcoin wallet on it. And so he offered to share 25% of the £200 million worth that he suggested was on the hard drive that he accidentally threw out in 2013. That is now worth more, by the way, as we saw a moment ago. That is now worth about 600. At one point, he also said he would not only offer some to the council, but also split some with sort of the people of Newport in some way. And a key part of this story, which I think sometimes gets overlooked, is the fact that he had this financial backing from this hedge fund, which I would assume means that however much he is obsessed with finding this Bitcoin or not, there is presumably a contract somewhere that says that he really has to follow this until there are no other options. Like, that he really has to go for it because they've given him some money to find it, right? He sued his local council, Newport City Council, for either access to the landfill so that he can search the landfill to try and find these Bitcoin, or for the worth of those Bitcoin in Great British pounds, right? So at the time, so 9th of January, the price of Bitcoin has gone up now because Donald Trump's in power in the US and he did a meme coin when he got etc. etc. At that point, if he'd won his case, and presuming that they didn't give him access to the landfill site, he would have got £495 million. Now, of course, what happened is the judge said this is sort of maybe not worth our time. In fact, it got struck out straight away. So Judge Casey said that there were no reasonable grounds for bringing the claim and no realistic prospect of succeeding at a full trial. So we didn't even get a trial. James Howell's response was, the case being struck out at the earliest hearing doesn't even give me the opportunity to explain myself or an opportunity for justice in any shape or form, which I don't think justice is the word here. So, and this was January 2025. So this was fairly recently that this thing seemed to have reached the end of the road. Like, this man who wanted his potentially now £598 million worth of Bitcoin was like, it's reached the end of the road. Maybe this isn't happening anymore. And then, just today, it has turned out that Newport City Council has decided that it's going to close this rubbish dump. So Newport City Council have decided that they will no longer be using the site, and he has offered to buy it. I mean, I'm sure there are quite a lot of legal bits of red tape around landfills and what you do with them when they're full. And in fact, I think there probably should be. I don't know. Do we just sell landfills to people? Feels inadvisable, or at least if they get sold to people, you can't disturb all of the ground. 'Cause I think one of the worries from the council, obviously they just didn't want it to happen. It's sort of ridiculous. But one of the specific concerns they'd pointed to was sort of the environmental impact, both in terms of the sort of eco impact, but also for people that live nearby, of someone disturbing a landfill site. And so there is a real kind of wah ending to this in the fact that just a month ago it was the end of the line, and now he might be able to buy the rubbish dump. But I don't know, what do you think should happen? Do you think we should let the guy sort of have a go?